Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. Today I wanted to focus a little bit on preparing for the impeachment trial in the Senate and why it's not a good idea for Nancy Pelosi to take the articles over right at this moment. Joe Biden has been, President Biden now has been taking the stand that he would like to bring unity in the United States, and he's calling for everybody to think of themselves as Americans, and we're going to get over this. But the problem with it is, right now, is the same thing that happened in Iraq, and why it's taking a long time for that first government proposal to be accepted. When in the Iraq War, the first week of the war, George Bush had over an 80% approval rating for the preemptive strike on Iraq. So people were not thinking about the principles associated with it. It was more like people were thinking, well, the government knows what they're doing. We don't have any intelligence about it, so we can have to just respect the fact that they know what they're doing and they're doing the right thing. But the government are not standing on the principles of it. Most of the time, they function without understanding the root cause of the problem that they're facing. And for mankind, now stepping back from the government, we're talking about mankind and the power games that people play. So the first thing that really has to happen, just like understanding that there are laws, then the first thing you have to understand is that how the rules work for something. If you're going to play a game, okay, let's say somebody has a deck of cards or pulls out a new game, a board game or something like that, the first thing you should do is understand the rules of the game before you get engrossed in it and then go back and look at it backwards. Okay. So first of all, what we have to understand as a planet is how the power games work and why they don't work. And I've talked before about the Pentagon being shaped like a pentacle of power and things like that. So we'll go into that now in greater depth. How about the rationale for understanding how the games work? The rationale is that they're called deadly sins for a reason, and that is people die because of them. They're the 7 deadly sins, and people play 7 power games that are associated with coming from a sense of lack. So if you are playing a game of respect, then where you lack respect, then you play a game to compensate for it. They're compensatory games to make up for a sense of lack. There are 3 fears associated with them: loss, death, and failure. So if you fear that you're going to fail, that's when you fail. You bring towards you what you fear. You can't run away from what you fear. You have to face it. Okay. So these are all just kind of the preliminary ideas. We'll go into that in far greater depth. But let's look at why the exit strategy for Iraq is the solution to what's happening now. When George Bush told a grand lie to justify the preemptive strike on Iraq, it went against the idea of presumption of innocence, which is one of the tenets of our legal system. People are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Now, before that became aware, there was chaos in our system, in the legal system. Like back in the 1930s and 1920s, there were the black people who had been the slaves who had been emancipated, and the carpetbaggers. That time period was very, very chaotic. The black people would have something, and the white people would figure out a way how to take it away from them. So there these games like racism is actually an act of revenge with the pentacle of power. So now what happens is, with those 5 games, there's 5 deadly sins associated with racism and with slavery and all that, with revenge. you have pride. That leads to envy, that leads to greed, and that leads to slavery and human rights violations, and then that leads to anger and denying other people a voice. So you see, when voter suppression is denying people a voice, so you can just assume that all the other games are associated with it too, because they are. They put black people down, the white people put black people down, then they judge them. Let's say they judge them, then let's say if they could put somebody down, then they could judge them, even in court, and then let's say they accused black men of having some sort of relationship with women, unseemly relationship, and then they would take what was theirs, and then they would go in and take what was theirs, then they would own them like a form of corruption where owning them. Then the last thing was denying them a voice. So as they were coming out of it, they were denied a voice, and all these other things too. Now, in Washington, D.C. right now, we have Donald Trump has, for the last 4 years, plus before, however long it was, with the birther ideas and things like that, Donald Trump had been weaving an illusion that Barack Obama wasn't, let's say, the legitimate president of the United States. He wasn't legitimate. So then other people believe the lies. Basically, the truth didn't overcome the lie. It just reached the point where nobody knew who to trust anymore. So they put their trust in Donald Trump. He said, trust me, I know what I'm doing. I'm a wealthy man. I'm a businessman. I know what I'm doing. I have power, more power than you can possibly imagine. Things like that. So in a way, what he was doing is he was setting the stage for this illusion. Now, there are two power games that are associated with weaving an illusion. One is genocide and one is slavery, and that's related to the greed idea. So now, an example of this is let's say ISIS. I honestly don't believe ISIS is a terrorist organization. It never has been. I think it is a result of revenge, and it's weaving an illusion and owning people. And when you think of it, it's like the idea of putting children out in front of you so that a warrior grabbing a child and using that child as a hostage, that kind of thing. So people were sold a bill of goods, like that there's a prophecy associated with it. And the prophecy is that Jesus, I ran across a prophecy once that triggered ISIS. And it was that Jesus and Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, would get together. And that's actually happening now. But it's not based on creating a caliphate. It's the world is a caliphate. In a way, I should not. This is a sidebar, but Jesus and Muhammad are coming together by purifying the by the pure ray, faith of the pure ray, which unifies the world's 7 major religions into one. They're coming together. The prophecy is being fulfilled that triggered the rise of ISIS, but it was a misinterpretation of that idea. It was an illusion. It was let's say that and I've talked about this before, if you are weaving an illusion, one of the things that you do is you let's say the mainstream people are going along like this. And this is what's happened now, is that when Donald Trump told his lies, he's spinning down in this idea of the lies and weaving an illusion and revenge. He's getting revenge on Obama, on the Clintons and Biden, and all of these ideas, and me, because he knows about the plan for the international government. So he's going to do everything he can to stop it. And so he's weaving this illusion and pegging himself down at the bottom of the crisis situation. That's basically a form of obfuscation, a form of illusion. Okay, so now think about that. You throw a rock in the water and a boulder, and the water goes around it like this, and you have to pull the rock out before the flow can keep going. But the flow is actually still going. It's just one segment of it that's going around that. So we have to address this idea of creating the flow again, the unity idea, the one idea that creates a unity. Okay, so the first step is understanding How about if you're an alcoholic and an understanding, or you're sick and you understand that why you're doing it? If you go to a psychologist, you have to understand why. The whole idea is to peel off the onion skin idea, peel off it layer by layer to get to the core problem. And then when you do that, then you can do something about that. You can address the core problem of it. When there's layer after layer of illusion on top of it, it's really hard to know what that is. So then you can be manipulated. Now, so what we have now is let's say in Congress, the impeachment articles are right there, but there's only one idea. Donald Trump has, there are basically probably hundreds of laws that he's broken from the idea of, let's say, that they don't know about his movements related to the shell companies and things like that. There's all these crimes, and this was the one, and that was the one that was supposed to be something that everybody agreed to. But what happens if the Republicans play their power games of blocking the Democrats from moving forward, and they acquit him? What happens if, like the first trial, impeachment trial, they just acquit him? They could do that so easily. So this is what we have to do now, is we have to peel off the onion skin and find out how the power games work and why they don't. Is this, if Donald Trump was the president of the United States, the first in the history of the United States to be impeached twice, he has to be doing something wrong. It wasn't just he was being picked on. He had to be doing something wrong, because if he had been standing on all the principles of his oath of office and that, he wouldn't have been impeached at all. There wouldn't have been ever any scandal, because he would be using his power based on the Constitution, his oath of office. Okay, so the first thing is that we have to address is coming to the root cause of the problem, understanding how the games work and why they don't work. And this is the same thing that we're doing with the exit strategy for Iraq. Why, if George Bush told a lie, a grand lie, and ripples of effects went off, what about Donald Trump telling a lie day after day after day, 30,000 lies or something like that? It was something like 50 a day. I don't remember. I remember talking that somebody had counted all that. So that's the problem, is that then the next step is okay, so we have this, and then we have the beginning, and then we have the end, and that is the trial. Where does he have a fair trial here, when right now all the Republicans, or a lot of the Republicans, are supported the idea of the insurrection, and they're going to defend themselves through this whole process. They're going to, like Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, are going to defend themselves for what they did to support this insurrection. And that hasn't been addressed. So then what happens, what comes next after this, understanding the root cause and peeling the onion skin off, then it has to do with conflict resolution and unification. So this is what we're going to do with our Oxford and Stonehenge. Stonehenge was used for a place of conflict resolution, and kings from all over the known world came together there, and they met on this plain, the Salisbury Plain, and they did their right of conflict resolution, and that's one of the things that we're going to demonstrate hopefully soon. Then, but at the same time, the opposite side of the coin, same side, this same coin, but the opposite side, if on one side you have unification, but on the other side you have to have conflict resolution, they're the same thing. When you stop and think of it, conflict resolution leads to unification, and unification leads to conflict resolution. Okay, so that's what we're going to discuss when we go to Oxford and Stonehenge. Then the next one is mediation. This just stops it. Let's say it's like a ceasefire. The people are going, we've gotten into a quagmire, we need to cease fire, because otherwise we won't have anybody left. We're going to wipe out everybody. So you have to stop the conflict. Then what happens is then you have this form of mediation that creates a sense of respect. When you come together and if you both tell your sides of the story, right now, nobody's telling their sides of the story. Now, why would Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, people just do what they're doing? They're doing it, people think, well, they're doing it because they're going to run for president in 4 years, and that time comes pretty fast when you stop and think of it, because the midterms, after the midterms is when in 2 years is when they start announcing what they're going to do. So mediation, and that leads to a sense of respect between both sides, a sense of equality. Both sides have their say, and both sides are respected, and it isn't a kangaroo court when it goes into the final thing, which is the trial. Then what they both have is they understand the power games. They've had their side. They've had a chance to tell their story. And who knows, maybe at mediation they can say, you were right and I was wrong. And basically they walk away from it, because that has to be binding mediation. And then it goes to the court case. And that's the point where they not only have their say, but they explain why it happened and why they believe they're right. And because they have the higher moral ground, you could say, the principles that they stood on. If Donald Trump says that he was president of the United States and he had the right to do it because the Constitution gave him unlimited power, unbelievable power. He said the Constitution addresses the use of power and the abuse of power and when to remove somebody from office for abusing their power. The Constitution doesn't give him unlimited power. It gives him certain powers to do the job, but not to abuse. He cannot abuse the power. He said because that drags the country down. He can be tried for high crimes and misdemeanors. Impeachment is for high crimes and misdemeanors. And a misdemeanor, you think of a misdemeanor as being not that important. It can be something like Bill Clinton, having a sexual relationship with Monica Lewinsky. On a parallel basis, is that equaling insurrection? Now that's a private thing between him and his wife and the woman, Monica Lewinsky, things like that. But did that undermine the security of the United States? Was that something on an equal level to something like that? Now I'm not judging anybody. That was their call, not mine. But was that something that was equal? Was it fair? Where do we fit in here? Is this a 7 deadly sin? Actually, in a way, if lust is one of the 7 deadly sins, was that lust? The problem with that is, the problem with having a sexual relationship isn't having a sexual relationship with somebody. It's that somebody can blackmail you and somebody can hold you under their thumb, so to speak. Are you going to be under somebody's thumb by compromising yourself? See, there's all of these ideas that we're talking about. And Donald Trump, who's controlling Donald Trump? We never address Russia's influence over Donald Trump. So here we have a whole 4-year issue. It wasn't just the insurrection. It was the lies. It was the attempting to control. It was whether or not he was compromised by the Russians, how much control does the Russians have. Now, as we step back and we look at this protocol, step-by-step protocol for unraveling the illusion, this comes down to universal law. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but under universal law, what you do to somebody else will be done to you. And Donald Trump did a bunch of things, and now Joe Biden, he unraveled everything Obama did, but now Joe Biden is unraveling everything that Trump did. Okay, so here we got it. He said, this is the step-by-step protocol that we need to do to come to the truth. The unification will come after we do the conflict resolution, focusing this idea on conflict resolution and unification, and then mediation, and then the trial. That is when Donald Trump will get a fair trial. Okay. Thanks. I'd like to ask you to like, share, and subscribe. This is information that I would like to see people understand. Okay? and you can share with other people and discuss it with people. Thank you.